Okay, so last night we obviously had the FA Cup third round draw. Some really interesting matchups. We've got to look forward to, and this is the stage where the Premier League and the Championship sides enter the competition. So this is going to be a really interesting third round. Really interesting third round. There's some all Premiership ties, which are really interesting, and there's some really tasty encounters that actually have some history to them as well. So let's go through the full draw and what we've got to look forward to in the third round. So we'll start with Macclesfield Crystal Palace. Um, I think Crystal Palace have a very good chance this season of retaining the FA Cup. It won't be easy away from home at Macclesfield, the lower league club, but I think with the way they're playing right now, with where they're sitting in the league, they're juggling a European campaign very well without that impacting their league form. I mean, they're fourth in the Premier League, and they're not a million miles away from Arsenal in first. So, anything can happen between now and the end of the season. They're having a really strong season. Glasner, the head coach there, done a fantastic job since he's been appointed. How he's turned that side around in a very, very short window. This time last year, they were battling near the bottom of the Premier League. Fast forward 12 months, they've won their first major silverware. They're playing in Europe and they're in the top four. Who would have thought that? Cambridge United will be hosting Birmingham City. That's a tasty one. Birmingham City, big spenders in the Championship. Cambridge United at home. It will be difficult. It will not be easy. But Birmingham City are starting to really build something. And I wouldn't be surprised if before too long they are a Premier League side again, whether it's after this season or next season. But I can see Birmingham City making it back to the Premier League. It's a matter of if, not when. Not if, but when, sorry. Cambridge United, that's going to be a really tough game for them, though. Cambridge United are a pretty decent side, pretty solid side, and Birmingham City, there could be an upset there. Newcastle United, Bournemouth, the Eddie Howe derby, as I'm going to call it. Ooh, this is quite a tasty one because Newcastle have been a little bit disappointing this season. Bournemouth are not a bad side. They're not a bad side. This is going to be a really close encounter. I think Bournemouth have shown under Areola, under the last couple of seasons, they're a pretty decent side. They can play a bit. They've got some good young players. They can be expansive. They're very pragmatic. And Newcastle have their moments as well. Newcastle have got some very good players in their side. Of course, coming off the back of ending their trophy drought last season with the League Cup, they're back in Europe. So they're juggling a few things, and I think Eddie Howe has done a great job. But I think Bournemouth might be favourites there. This is going to be a really tight one. Newcastle at home are a different kettle of fish to Newcastle away. But they always travel well. But the history between the two clubs, because of the manager, makes it really, really interesting. I'm really looking forward to that. I really am. I think that'd be a thrilling cup tie at St James's Park up in Newcastle. Fulham Middlesbrough. Fulham doing okay in the Premier League. They've stabilised as a Premier League club. Now they were a yo-yo club for a while. Middlesbrough, they're doing quite well in the Championship. They're not a bad side. Fulham could be vulnerable here, so that's a potential upset at Craven Cottage. I think Fulham are more focused on just making sure they have, avoid relegation from the Premier League, get a good, solid Premier League finish they can build towards the future. Middlesbrough, they're looking for promotion, bit of momentum, but I think Middlesbrough could potentially pull off an upset there. Liverpool Barnsley, we know about the history in this tie with what Barnsley have done before at Anfield, and Liverpool are not playing well at the moment. They are vulnerable. That, again, potential upset, and Barnsley have upset Liverpool before at Anfield. So that one could be a potential banana skin with the way Liverpool are playing right now. A lot of negative headlines surrounding the club and their form not being great. That is a dangerous one. Doncaster Southampton. Southampton have struggled over the last couple of seasons, haven't they? The second worst Premier League season on record last year. I think Wolves are going to beat that somehow. But Doncaster, I think Southampton are vulnerable. This is another potential upset. Doncaster at home, have the home crowd behind them. Southampton not doing particularly well in the Championship, vulnerable. Could be a tasty one. Then we have Charlton Chelsea in the as an all London derby. That's going to be tasty. South East London versus West London. That's any London derby is going to be tasty. Charlton will not make it easy for Chelsea. They will not make it easy at the Valley. It will be a a niggly game. I think this is a proper derby match, and it's Charlton and Chelsea don't play as often as they used to because Charlton have been outside the Premier League for some time. They're going to make it uncomfortable. Chelsea have got to turn up. Chelsea have got to turn up, and they've got to be prepared for a battle. So that will be a really interesting one. Stoke City, Coventry City, all Championship. I've got to go with Coventry City here with the way they're playing. They're top of the Championship. Stoke are a solid side, but I think Coventry, even though they're away from home, they're favourites for me in this one. Although, will they potentially be, looking at how they're doing in the league, cup? Will the cup run, distract them from their league form, or will Frank Lampard go, no, let's keep the momentum going, let's win as many games as we can this season? It wasn't that long ago they were in a FA Cup semi-final. MK Dons versus Oxford United, a little bit of a local derby to be fair, because Milton Keynes is halfway between Oxford and Cambridge. And Oxford United, I think, not doing particularly well in the Championship. They want to build some momentum. MK Dons, obviously lower league club in the Football League. I think Oxford United want to just build some momentum, get some confidence, potential banana skin, but in saying that, MK Dons aren't really setting the world on fire and never really have. So it'll be interesting to see what the crowd numbers are at the Stadium MK, because I think Oxford United might bring more fans than MK Dons will. Sheffield Wednesday, Brentford, obviously with everything that's going on at Sheffield Wednesday, it's been a very difficult. It was difficult last season. It's been very difficult this season. Obviously, the points deductions, the administration. Brentford, I think at Brentford, there's the potential for a banana skin here because Sheffield Wednesday got nothing to lose. They've absolutely nothing to lose here, and they need to make a win really helps them revenue wise. Brentford probably focusing a little bit more on Premier League survival, or just getting a good solid Premier League finish post Thomas Frank era. Potential for a banana skin because Sheffield Wednesday have got no pressure on them. They have got nothing to lose, and suddenly now the fans are returning to Hillsborough. They're selling out. That's going to be a tasty one. That'd be an awkward one for Brentford. Ipswich Town, Blackpool. Anything's possible here. Ipswich, they are a decent side on their day, but it's been a tough adjustment to life in the Championship following relegation from the Premier League. Blackpool won't make it easy, even if they're the away team. It'll be a tasty one. That'll be an interesting contest. Very hard to pick one there. One I'm really looking forward to is Tottenham Hotspur Villa. Villa are obviously doing well in the league right now, in the top four. This is a really tasty one. I think Spurs might be slightly vulnerable. They've had some mixed results. And of course, they've ended their trophy drought last season, but it wasn't an overly convincing performance from the squad as a whole last year. Thomas Frank's first season there, obviously wanting to build upon what Big Ange did with winning the Europa League, but Villa doing really well at the moment. I think this is Villa's window now to do something, and Villa, I think, have had 3 decades without a trophy. Is this the season they end that drought? Other clubs have ended their drought or won their first trophy in recent years. Is this Villa's turn to end their trophy drought against the Spurs side that ended theirs last season and have been inconsistent? So that would be a really tasty all Premier League affair at the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Portsmouth, Arsenal. Arsenal have got to really stamp their Championship trophy-winning credentials. I mean, they've flattered to deceive. They finished second so many times in so many Premier League seasons. They've not quite done enough since they've been at the Emirates over the last 20 years. Is this the season they can win a league and cup double, for example? Portsmouth will not make it easy for them, but I can see Arsenal. I hope Arsenal put out a full-strength side for this and just keep that momentum going. They've had a few wobbles, dropped a few points here or there in the league. Is this the game where they can restart that momentum and prove that they've got title credentials and FA Cup winners credentials? Portsmouth will not make it easy, but Portsmouth are sort of struggling a little bit in the league. Preston North End, Wigan Athletic. All Lancashire derby, that's going to be fun. That is going to be fun. Hard to pick a winner out of that one because it's a derby match and both sides will be up for it. Hopefully the weather conditions aren't too bad because obviously we've seen some horrendous weather lately. That will be a fun game just because it's a local derby. Man City, Exeter City. Again, potential banana skin for Man City. Yes, they're doing reasonably well in the league, better than last season. Last season was a poor season by their standards, but Man City had some vulnerabilities exposed last year, really exposed last year. And I think Exeter City, pressure's off, away from home, potential for an upset, very similar to Liverpool Barnsley. There's the potential for that upset. And while Man City are doing well in the league right now, chasing down Arsenal, they're not blowing Villa or Crystal Palace away, who are chasing them down. So they're not secure in second place in the league. And Exeter City, there's no pressure on them, which makes them dangerous. So that'd be a really interesting one at the Etihad. Everton Sunderland, that's a mid-table Premier League clash, isn't it? Sunderland doing really well with their first season back in the Premier League. Everton, I think, are actually enjoying playing at their new stadium. There has been some improvements under the return of David Moyes at Everton. There's still a long way to go to get Everton back where they should be historically. Again, 3 decades without a trophy, very similar to Aston Villa. Sunderland, I wouldn't call it an upset if Sunderland win. This is an all Premier League tie. These are two sides roughly, I would say, roughly even, roughly equal in ability and in strength and how they're playing. Although Sunderland are really surprising a lot of people with how well they've adapted to Premier League life. That's going to be a fun one. That could potentially go to extra time. Man United versus Brighton Hove Albion. Man United, what they're going to throw up this time. They're so inconsistent. Last season was a really poor season. And while they've had some recent improvement in form, I think Brighton Hove Albion are the better side. Facts. Brighton Hove Albion are the better side. Look at it over the last few seasons. And Ruben Amorim is always going to be under pressure because of how last season was so bad. It was just absolutely, and his win percentage, while it's slowly improving, it's still a very poor win percentage for a Man United manager, even post Ferguson. It's there's always going to be a lot of pressure on Manchester United, and again, it's an all Premiership clash. And I think Brighton, this is an opportunity for them to go on an FA Cup run. They've got previous of making semi-finals. Let's see if they can go that one step further. And I think Man United are vulnerable. Hull City Blackburn Rovers. I'm a Blackburn fan. Obviously disappointed with the game against Sheffield Wednesday getting abandoned late on in the second match this season. Thank God we're away from home. I would be nervous if we were the home team, just because with the state of Ewood Park and the drainage issues we've got there. These are two average Championship sides that aren't setting the world on fire, in my opinion. Although Hull City are, I think, better than Blackburn at the moment, and have more potential in their squad. It could be a tasty one. It's an all Championship clash, formerly an all Premier League clash back in the day. So there's definitely a bit of spice in this one. And it's not a given that Hull are going to win or Blackburn are going to win. I think potentially, again, depends how we play. We tend to take the lead and then end up drawing a game. So it's going to be an interesting one. It's going to be a feisty one. Both sides want to build some momentum, and we're underperforming. I think we could play better. There is issues obviously with ownership and stuff like that. It's going to be a fun one. Then we look at Swansea City West Bromwich Albion. Again, another all Championship affair. Again, this is one of those mid-table kind of scrappy. If this was a league game, it'd be mid-table and a bit scrappy potentially. Again, very hard to go. That team is heavily favoured over the other. Although Swansea at home, obviously with the home fan base behind them. But West Brom, they're not a bad side, are they? They're a solid Championship outfit. I'm looking forward to some of these all Championship ties because these sides meet again in the league at some point. They want to get one up on their opponents when it comes back to the league fixture, have a bit of bragging rights, get a bit of revenge maybe from a previous league fixture. That's what makes it tasty. So we'll see if there's any niggle between the sides. Same with Hull and Blackburn, for example. Same with Man United, Brighton, for example, Everton, Sunderland. All these same teams in the same division playing each other. You've got that extra potential of a bit of niggle. So that'll be an interesting one. Grimsby Western-super-Mare is a really interesting one because Grimsby are a lower level football league side, but Western-super-Mare non-league side. It's great to see the non-league sides make the third round. It adds a bit of magic, and because they make the third round, there's no pressure on them. There's no fear. They can go out and have fun against the Football League opposition. Admittedly, they are away from home. And, Grimsby and Cleethorpes, when there's a bit of a sea breeze coming in, a bit of bad weather, can be a difficult place to play. And again, but Weston-super-Mare is on the Bristol Channel. They can also get bad weather. So the Weston-super-Mare players will probably be used to like sea breezes coming in, bad weather coming in off like the water, that kind of thing. So that sea breeze kind of thing won't, I think, phase them if as much as if they were, say, like a club from inland. So that could make it really interesting that the weather conditions probably won't impact this game, because both clubs are very used to playing by rather stormy seas at times. So that makes it really interesting. That I think takes the weather conditions out of it a little bit, because both teams' home ground is right by the sea. So that would be a really interesting clash. Non-league side, always dangerous at the third round. They've got that bit of magic. Can they pull off a cup shock and get to the fourth round? We shall see. But, Grimsby are a pretty solid Football League side. We've also spent some time in the non-league. There's some players in this Grimsby squad that played in the non-leagues. That makes it interesting as well. So that'd be a really interesting one to watch to see, if that's one of the televised games on free-to-air TV as well. One fixture that really is tasty, Burnley-Millwall. It's not just what's going to happen off the field, it's what's going to happen in the stands, because both fan bases have their elements that make things a bit feisty. That's going to be a tasty encounter on the field. It's going to be a tasty encounter off the field as well. No word of a lie there. There's going to be a bit of needle in this game. And look, am I a Millwall fan? No. But whenever Millwall are playing in the FA Cup, it's always interesting to see who they're drawn against. And when they generally get Premier League opposition, they generally pull off an upset. And, they're not a million miles away from being, a promotion candidate from the Championship. There is the potential that Millwall could, make the playoffs, make the Premier League. And that would be a nightmare for the Metropolitan Police to police that. It's going to be a tasty one. There's going to be needle on the field from last season when these two clubs were both in the Championship. There's going to be needle off the field in the stands as well. We've still got another page worth of fixtures to go. Norwich City, Walsall. Norwich City really struggling in the Championship. They're relegation form. They're nosediving right now. Walsall, they'll be licking their lips at a very vulnerable Norwich side that probably may put out a weakened side. I hope they don't, just for morale purposes and getting some, taking the competition seriously, build some momentum, because Walsall could probably smell blood in the water here. Norwich are exceptionally vulnerable. Potential for an upset. Wrexham, Nottingham Forest. Oh, God. Nottingham Forest, very similar to Norwich, not having the best season. They've gone through a couple of managers. They've now got Sean Dyche in there, which has definitely improved the side. People will ask Sean Dyche, oh Christ. But actually, he should have been appointed from the get-go. Let's be honest. He's definitely brought more defensive stability. Look, they are in Europe. They've got to juggle Europe with, their league and cup campaign. They're playing Wrexham, and Wrexham in recent weeks have started to improve again. They're climbing up the Championship from a tough start at that level. I think there's the potential for an upset. Wrexham at home, Forest having an indifferent, inconsistent season, although they are playing better under Sean Dyche. They've had all that disruption at the beginning of the season. That's a really tasty one. Talking about Nottingham Forest, let's talk about Derby County and Leeds United. So all the Brian Clough teams are in the third round, and Derby County Leeds United is the Brian Clough derby. If you've watched the Damned United, goes from Derby County to Leeds United and then ultimately on to Nottingham Forest. He had success with Derby County, he has success with Nottingham Forest. Leeds United, 44 days. At that point, one of the shortest tenures of a manager in history in the Football League. It's going to be a tasty one. Leeds finding it a bit difficult in the Premier League, although they can score some goals. They've got a bit about them. Derby, I think this could be a tasty one. The history between the two clubs going back to the 60s and the 70s, the rivalry there. There's a bit of rivalry in this game, even though it's not officially a local derby, because of that Brian Clough connection and linking into Nottingham Forest in the 60s, 70s, into the 80s. There is a rivalry here. And this will be a tasty game. Leeds are not, the Leeds of old back in the 90s and the 2000s. This Leeds side hasn't re-established itself on a long-term basis in the Premier League. They are vulnerable. There's the ability for an upset. Going to be a tasty one. Boreham Wood against Burton Albion. Again, lower level clubs playing each other. I think again this could probably be the best tie of the round potentially. There is that potential. Could be best tie of the round. Could be fun. I mean, you have these lower ranked teams in regards to where they sit in the footballing pyramid playing each other. They're not. One's not from the Championship, the Premier League. These are the lower level sides. They generally have the best FA Cup ties. They're generally the best matches to watch at this kind of second, third, fourth round of the FA Cup. They're generally the ones that I prefer to watch because there is no real pressure on these players, and they're a bit more freedom to express themselves a little bit. So that'd be a fun one. Port Vale, Fleetwood Town. Again, very similar to Bournemouth, Burton Albion. I mean, I like watching these lower league and non-league clubs play each other in the FA Cup in the third round onwards because for them, it's at this point it has become a bit of an adventure getting further into the competition. The pressure actually drops off them. So again, this could be a lot of fun. And Port Vale, with their history of beating every single Football League club, I mean, crikey, that's something they want to keep chalking up these wins against other Football League clubs. Kind of fun. West Ham United QPR, another London derby, East versus West. West Ham and QPR, both sides, I think, are not where they want to be in their respective leagues. West Ham are having a very disappointing and tough season. And QPR, I mean, look, QPR, they're a bit of an enigma themselves. I think QPR as a club have underachieved in their history. And I don't think QPR are where they want to be, considering the amount of money the ownership over the years has spent at QPR. For them really not to have achieved something is very disappointing. But QPR outside the Premier League at the moment. London derby, a misfiring, struggling West Ham. That could be a tasty one because there is pressure on both clubs. QPR they're an enigma, but West Ham, with how they're performing, there's a lot of pressure on them and potential for an upset. Wolverhampton Wanderers versus Shrewsbury Town. Shrewsbury obviously snatched victory from the Jewels' defeat on Saturday in a match that they were behind, had a player sent off, and then they go on to win, which they shouldn't have done because they were dreadful at points. Wolves, oh God, they're on course for like the worst, not only Premier League season, but I think the worst ever season a club has ever had in football. I cannot believe at this point in the season they've only got 2 points, 2 draws. They are in real trouble. Shrewsbury, they've got their own issues. They're not playing particularly well in the league. They do like to concede sloppy, silly goals. They were dreadful in the first half on Saturday in the second round, but then they somehow found a way to get some momentum going and get back in the game and then take the lead and win the game. Of course, their leagues apart, League 2 and the Premier League, but Wolves are, I think, in real trouble right now. And God knows what strength of squad Wolves are going to put on the field. But if they lose this, I mean, Christ, their season's definitely done. This could be that kind of distraction, that momentum builder that they could use because they're so far behind everyone else. I think they're basically relegated at this point. Shrewsbury, I think the pressure's off them because now they're the underdog and maybe that might help them. And of course they want to build a bit of momentum themselves for their league campaign. Cheltenham Town, Leicester City, again another team that always seems to be struggling with relegation fights in Cheltenham. Leicester City, I mean, they're one of those sides that sort of, they've had success in recent years, but they've also had some very poor seasons. Could be a tasty one, another potential upset there. And then Bristol City, Watford, all Championship. There's going to be a bit of needle in that game, no doubt. Sheffield United struggling in the Championship versus Mansfield Town. Vulnerable, again, potential upset. And then Salford City, Swindon Town to finish out the third round draw. I mean, look, Salford City, obviously the class of 92, and there's people's views on the ownership of Salford City and what they bring to the Football League, what they bring to the table. Swindon Town, obviously, they've got a great history as a club. I've hit harder times. Obviously, he went bust a couple of years ago. Not where I think the club wants to be. I think they want to be at a higher level. Historically, they've been at a high level. They're from a Premier League club, for Christ's sake. I don't think they want to be in the lower levels of the Football League, and they've had their struggles financially. That's going to be a tasty one because that's an all Football League affair as well. So there's some really tasty ones, but there's some derby matches in here, there's some big rivalries in here, and there's some history in here, especially like Liverpool-Barnsley. There's history there. Barnsley have gone to Anfield before when Liverpool have been a bit misfiring and got the win. Clubs like Exeter City, away at Man City, there's no pressure. Got some all Championship and all Premier League, clashes, which could also have implications for what happens in the league later this season. So this is a very fun third round draw. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. This is one of the longer videos we've done. Normally I try and keep videos a bit shorter, but of course because of the amount of games that are going to be played in the third round, it's going to take some time. But thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts on the FA Cup third round draw from yesterday in the comments section below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you are interested in memberships, the membership button is there as well. But from me for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all very, very soon.